Salutations and welcome to the Manabar Video Game Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Rose, and I'm joined here with Matt Samarco.
Hey, this is such a great day.
Because Dan's not here?
I didn't say that. You said that.
Is he taking a dirt nap because of you? Was this like your plan?
Look, I'm sure he's fine.
Yeah, he's fine. He's not here today, though, which, you know, I guess that's not fine for Matt because Matt hates it when it's just the two of us.
Is that true?
I mean, you always get
Have you been listening to the podcast me and Dan do without you?
Yeah.
I told you not to.
No, I did.
Oh, man.
It sounds really good, unfortunately, for me. But no, last time we did a solo cast with just the two of us, you were really nervous. You're like, I don't have Dan to bounce off of when Andy gets weird.
It got pretty intimate, just me and you.
Yeah.
One-on-one adventure.
Mm-hmm. How you doing?
Doing good. Playing video games, enjoying video games.
Have we been just playing the same video games we were last week?
Yep, we've been very bad at, broadening our horizons and giving any listeners
This is going to be a short episode, isn't it?
Interesting to listen to.
Yeah, actually, a blessing in disguise that I haven't played anything new, because I've been playing a lot of multiplayer games still, but that's come to a sudden and screeching halt. Because
we're both playing old games too, right? Like you're playing a Halo and I'm playing Final Fantasy.
Yeah,
we're both playing games that are a decade plus old.
So yesterday I had the realization that a lot of the people Dan and I were running into in Halo were squads of people where we were getting mostly Halo Reach maps, and it's just those people that they know the map so well that they had us completely locked down the entire time. We ran into a lot of those, and then Modern Warfare has just become a camp fest where people are just camping everywhere in the game, and it left a really bad taste in my mouth.
Fun.
No, it was horrible. So left a really bad taste in my mouth to the point where I think I've had my fill to where those games aren't fun for me right now. And I just downloaded Jedi Fallen Order onto my Xbone. So
that's a fun game.
That's probably something I'm going to be playing this weekend / tonight. So that's my next hurdle, I think. Meanwhile, you've just been playing FF13, right?
Pretty much. Yep.
Has that experience gotten any better or worse? I know if Dan was here, he'd probably be upset that you were playing it at all. As the podcast ended on a sour note last week.
Well, that's 'cause he wants me to play all of his weird games.
What was it? Quest for something? I don't know. He wanted you to play that Kurt Schilling game from that studio that failed.
Oh, yeah. 38 Studios.
Which I did hear that was a good game, though.
Yeah.
Despite it. But yeah, anything new with Final Fantasy XIII?
Well, I finally got to that point in the game, like midway through. So if you read any reviews or kind of like retrospectives of this game, there's like this point, like 25, 30 hours into the game where like it opens up and gets good at this point. And I finally got to that point, and it is like kind of jarring about how much different it is and how I want to loosely say better because it's definitely better. Like it's an open world, like you're going around this giant map and it's got little side areas that you can go into. So you're kind of exploring. There's areas you can go into that are like where you can't handle it yet. You're not strong enough. You have to kind of level up. And then there's like side quests. So there's this side quest chain where there's basically 65 or so missions that you have to do. And they're basically, you just go to a stone and it's like, kill this guy. And then you kill it and like you'll get like an accessory or some items to upgrade your weapons. So it's still kind of like bare bones in that it's not like fleshed out story side quests or anything, but at least it's something. It's more than just the kind of straight corridor walking that the first 26 hours of the games was. So it's kind of nice that I'm kind of able
Which is much longer than any corridor walking RPG game should be. Yeah,
it's essentially like a 25-hour plus tutorial, which is super crazy to think about that they would do that. Like it's like even the story content isn't like, it's not like they packed a ton of stuff in there so you're like, oh my god, this happened, and then there was a switch around with this character. It was just like they could do that in 6 hours, and I think everyone would have been satisfied with that if they just so I don't know if it was just they were trying to lengthen the game or if they got rushed at some point, or
so originally Final Fantasy XIII way back in the day, because this was their first one on that generation of console. Originally,
it was the only one.
This is just from me remembering that far back. Because I remember seeing the trailers, and there was going to be two games. There was Final Fantasy XIII for the PlayStation 3, and then there was Final Fantasy XIII Versus. And this is all just going off of memory and verbatim. I didn't look any of this up, so I don't know how much of it is accurate. But I do remember seeing the trailer for Final Fantasy XIII Versus, and it was just like different characters. It was basically lower res characters of what we got in Final Fantasy 15. And Versus was ultimately put on hold and on the shelf until it became Final Fantasy 15 eventually. And Final Fantasy 13 ended up being the one that was just on all consoles. And I don't really know what the mentality was behind doing separate Final Fantasies for the separate systems in the first place, let alone not end up doing that in the end. But it did
What do you mean by separate Final Fantasies for separate systems? You mean separate generations, or
no? 13 Versus was going to be on the Xbox,
okay.
and 13 was going to be on the PlayStation. So it was going to be like each one had their own exclusive.
Yeah, I knew about Versus. I didn't know about that like exclusive thing that you're talking about.
Yeah, at least that's just the way I remember it. I don't know if that's actually
it was weird. It was like
it
felt like there was this like 4 or 5 year period where you just heard these weird leaks about these like Versus game, and then like you'd see like a trailer or like a few screenshots every like year and a half, and then all of a sudden they're like
that showed nothing.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden it turns into FF15, which is like another semi-disappointment that I don't even want to get into.
Yeah. So the game did get better, but did it get good?
No, it did not get good. It's getting more enjoyable just to kind of like if you're just kind of want to zone out and like because I felt like especially near that end of that 25 that tutorial I felt kind of underleveled even though I had fought literally every boss that I could. Like I felt like there was areas where I was kind of dying a lot and I didn't feel like especially at the bosses and the timed enemies that I've discussed earlier. So it got frustrating. So I was just kind of glad to be able to just get to an area where I could try to do all of these side quests, and I kind of want to get to that point. I love in RPGs where you kind of just like out level the area that you're in, so you just kind of hunker down, do a ton of side quests, and then by the time you go back to the main story, you can just like plow through everything, which is kind of strange because I've done about 27 or 28 of those like side missions. Most of them are just like optional. There's a few that you have to do, but I still don't feel like I'm overpowered or like I'm still struggling with some guys. So I don't know. If the leveling, like if I keep leveling up, if I'm gonna get to the point where I can really mow things over or not, because the leveling system is kind of strange. Where I'm kind of at the point where with each of the classes that I'm using, I'm just close to maxed out. Now they do this weird thing where like on certain chapters they'll kind of increase the maximum level of your character. So like. You have your class can go up to mine can go up to level 4. It starts at level 1. And then every few chapters, they'll be like, okay, now you can expand it to level 2. And you'll be able to get more orbs that say, more HP or strength or magic or different abilities or anything like that. So I don't know if it's so restricted that you really can't over level it. And I can't get to that higher level until, more chapters. I'm pretty close to the end as far as chapters goes, but I think there's still a lot. Like I think the last few chapters are relatively long. And then I know another thing I'm curious about is I know at the end of the game you actually unlock more upgrades after you beat the game. So there's kind of like an after the game end game. So I'm kind of concerned, like, can I not even do some of the side quests until I can beat the game and then kind of level up even more?
Not to mention, are you going to want to do that stuff after beating the game?
It doesn't seem like a thing where I would want to do that after. I kind of want to do it before and then like destroy the last boss. But I'm not sure if this is a Final Fantasy game you can do that. Like you can do that in 7 and 8 and like, level up to 100 or whatever. So because this doesn't have levels and because it kind of gates you at different chapters and even at the end of the game it gates you, it'll be interesting to see how much I can level up and if I'm going to get bored of it soon. Because I mean, this again, like it's a lot more interesting, which has kind of revitalized my interest a little bit. But it's still like it's not like open worlds with different cities and characters and side stories. It's just like, okay, at least there's new interesting enemies. And another thing that I had complained about on the last couple podcasts was how you don't gain money in this game at all. Like I had less than 10,000, whatever it is, gold or money, 30 hours into this game. And then all of a sudden I was doing these side quests and I was able to sell a couple of things that I got and I had like 400,000 gold. So it was like
just a huge jump,
just like a few items. Like I was selling items that were over 100,000 gold. So now I actually have a lot of money and it's kind of like, I can kind of buy whatever I want now. I can buy these nice accessories. There's still things that cost, $500,000, $1 million, 2 million gold. So there's still things that I can't, but it just seems like, it really does seem like they said, okay, this 30 hours, it's just a tutorial. We don't even want them to do side quests or level up or get better items or do anything like that. It's just such a strange structure that like now that I'm playing again, I'm seeing it more like starkly about how just weird it looks. But.
Yeah, and I was one of those people where when Final Fantasy XIII came out, and we talked a little bit about this last week, but initially it was almost like I tricked myself into liking it initially, and this was really like a dark time for the series. Like, this was like the beginning of a dark time for the series because you
had...
those
first... Because I think me and you probably started around the same time with 7, and it was like they just had
hit after hit after hit.
And they had them every year, and it just felt like... I don't mean to interrupt what you were about to say, but like I just got so frustrated. You know, they came out with like 3 almost year after year after year, and then 10 was not long after that. And then they're like, okay, now we're going to wait 6 or 7 years in between them, and then also the quality's going to go down significantly.
10 was definitely the peak, and then 10-2 was kind of the start of what are they doing? Because 12 was mixed, to be honest, and then 13, I initially liked until I realized what the game was, and then the 2 sequels pretty much went under the radar, and then they had the FF14 debacle where it started off horrible. Oh, and then they had 11 in the mix too, which was kind of this weird amalgamation.
Yeah, another MMO.
It was an MMO. Now 14 has come back and gotten better over time, but that was by them bringing the crew who did FF11 onto 14 to kind of fix it and save it, because I do know a lot of people who fondly play that game now, whereas at first it was just a mess, evidently. And you playing through 13 and all of this, everybody kind of knows the general story about what happened with FF15 and how they worked on it for so long. I kind of want to know the story behind 13.
I do too.
Like, who greenlit
crazy
this weird game? Like, I
who
understand
greenlit the sequels.
Oh yeah, that's true. Like, I know I'm assuming the amount of copies sold.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm assuming it must have been like the cost to make these. They have all the assets. I'm sure not as much time and money went into the sequels. So
did FF14 premiere on the current generation or the previous one? I think it was probably early.
14?
Yeah, the online one.
It's like almost 10 years old, I think. It's like 2011. I'm guessing, but I'm pretty sure
it must
it
have been on the last gen.
Yes, it was definitely.
So
you could definitely play
think about this. On the last generation of consoles, here's what we got for mainstay Final Fantasy games: 13, 2 sequels, and a broken 14.
Yeah,
that's pretty bad.
It's just crazy that between these are rough estimates, but around
not to mention Dissidia.
Yeah,
that was like the other thing.
Really, between 1998 and 2000 and 4, we got 5 mainline Final Fantasy games, and between after FF12, which is to today, which is 13 years, we've gotten 2, and they're out of those 7. Those most recent 7, they're probably easily the worst 2.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really count the MMOs and all the side stuff because...
No, that's true, because they've always had side
games.
stuffs, and, it's hard to judge a lot of the side stuff when I haven't played most of them. But now we're looking onwards where FF8 and 9 and 10 have all had their little HD remakes / they look a little prettier. And now we have a full-fledged Final Fantasy VII remake on the horizon that looks amazing so far. So, maybe this is the upturn, and it's not to say that Square has just been making only bad games. It's just the Final Fantasy franchise in general has been pretty poor.
Yeah, and I wonder what that says about the timeline, because every once in a while I'll hear rumors about they are underway on 16. I'm not sure how true that is or how far they into it. I think it's maybe somewhat assumed that they're kind of always working on the next mainline one, even if it takes them 8 years to make.
Now, is this going to be a true one or an online?
Like a true single player, because I think there was an article that I read recently where they were saying there's really no reason to create a new MMO just because 14 is so successful. It would just it's kind of like the same way how Blizzard hasn't made a new MMO because WoW has been so successful. You would just eat into yourself at this point, which I think is kind of a good thing because I'd rather have a single player one. But it kind of makes you think okay, is the remake going to be a positive or negative impact? Because you could think positively, it's going to give them a lot of good ideas. They could use this tech. Maybe with the next generation, they could really add on to this and be all right, these are the things that worked for the 7 remake. Let's kind of build from there. But on the other hand, they're going to be making Part 2 and Part 3, presumably of Final Fantasy VII. So does that mean we're going to get... Because I would like an original Final Fantasy adventure. Those are special too, just in how this remake's going to be kind of special to a lot of fans. You can't just play the same remake over and over. As fun and how excited I am for that. I really want to... At least once a couple times a generation, I want to do a new adventure. But.
Yeah, and much to your point, I don't want them to do the same treatment for 8, 9, and 10. As much as I loved 9 and 10, and I still really want to dig into 8. I feel like I never gave that game the fair shot.
Yeah, it's really fun, but it's definitely feels like the strangest of them because it's half broken.
Yeah,
just in the gameplay and the junctioning system.
But as much as I would love to see remakes of those games, I don't want them to make remakes of those games. And I think Final Fantasy VII was the outlier in that anyways, just because it was the earliest one they did on the PlayStation. It looked the worst comparatively. but it had like the best story.
Yeah, I mean, like if you ask anyone, me and you are kind of like in our early 30s. I feel like, you know, you ask at least like 30% of people you ask our age range that play video games are going to be like, yeah, that's my favorite game. I know I've said that for a long time. You've said that at least a lot of the time. I know like a lot of other people I know have that same feeling. So I think it's like just it has a special timing in our lives where like people just really want to go back and play that game again.
It was the first... That was the game that opened me up to what games could be. And I'm not saying it's the best game ever made. I would never say that because that's far from the truth. But it is my favorite game at this point, at this juncture, unless I give myself room to think about it. It was the first game that had adult themes that I noticed. It was the first game that made me think, oh, games are not just Crash Bandicoot and Mario 64. Like, games can be much more. They can have much deeper storytelling to them. And, you know, that it is a nostalgia factor. It's a nostalgia factor for a lot of people, but you could ask just about any gamer, and even if they haven't played it, they know it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, specifically that one.
And I feel like it really opened up the Western audience to RPGs as a whole. Like, I used to think and this is when I was like a 12, like a little douchey kid, but I was like, oh, RPGs are just like kind of nerdy and slow and boring and like text adventures and stuff. It's like, I don't want to play that. Like, just seeing the stuff on even that SNES, like the earlier Final Fantasies, like I know people will really revere like Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI, but I was just like, oh, it's too slow. I want to run around and do actiony stuff. But like having this amazing story and having a 3D kind of built world with like cinematics and like just even the the budgeting on the marketing and commercials was so like kind of blowing people away that like I had to get into it and try it, and it just kind of changed my opinion and opened up this whole genre of games where I was playing games that I never thought I would play, like RPGs. I was going back and playing older ones, so it's really cool.
Yeah, I would say that if we're talking about the mid to late 90s, like what really defined RPGs of that time, it was Final Fantasy and Pokemon. Those were the two mainstays.
Yeah, for sure.
Obviously, Pokemon was, you know, the Power Rangers of the late 90s. Like, that was huge too. You can't, you know, turn away what they did. But yeah, I'm excited for the remake, and, you know, I'm not going to force myself to play Final Fantasy XIII like you are. However, I am really glad that you're playing it, because it's like, it's almost pushing me to kind of look deeper into that game. Just like I'm very curious. I'm very curious about the production and what happened with it.
It's kind of crazy. Like I'm kind of trying to wait to beat the game, and then I'm going to kind of read more about review. Like, I don't want to have the stories ruined for me, but I want to kind of read, because, you know, there's a lot of people that are into Final Fantasy, so there's a lot of interesting YouTube retrospectives and like how this was made videos that I kind of want to get into after.
It's even funnier that I have never heard a soul talk about the sequels.
I've never heard no one really talks about this game at all. Like, people talk about 12 and 10 and like even 15 is new, so they're still being talked about. But I feel like it's kind of this lost game, even though it sold a ton and I'm sure a lot of people played it. Like, it's just kind of like no one talks about it. No one says like, oh, this is Anthem, this is the worst game ever. But no one's like, I've ever heard anyone say Final Fantasy XIII is my favorite.
Yeah, I've either heard people say they beat it and it was just fine, or they couldn't get past, or if they're like me, they couldn't get past a few hours because they were bored.
Yeah, exactly. But
because the characters weren't doing enough for me. Unfortunately, I don't have anything interesting to say about things I've been playing. It was really I've been super busy, just kind of filling up my time playing Halo and Call of Duty. And yeah, that honestly, that's it. It's really boring. I have a Jedi Fallen Order on the horizon. A few other games I want to play. I'm in this like weird mode where I really want to play some nostalgia game, like some older games for some reason. I don't know why. Like, I think it's because I got the Xbox One now. I really want to pop in like Dead Space, and I have the Metal Gear games I've been itching to play. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with me over the next few weeks. It's going to be pretty interesting. The big piece of news this week that dropped was the December 2019 Sony State of Play that happened. You know, they're kind of doing the Nintendo thing now, like Nintendo does the Nintendo Directs. And it was really funny. So the biggest thing that came out of this for most people, so Dan, who couldn't join us today, gave me a call the other day and said, "Oh, have you seen the State of Play yet?" And I said, "Oh, no." He's like, "All right, just don't click on the link I sent. I want you to watch it with fresh eyes. I'm not going to spoil anything for you." He got me super, super jazzed for this State of Play.
Yeah, I would be pissed at him after, because I feel like I did not live up to that.
Yes. So he got me really excited, and he's like, "Oh yeah, there was a huge announcement." In my mind, I'm thinking of GTA 6. more Final Fantasy Remake news. Last time there was a State of Play, we had some new gameplay for FF7 Remake. It got me giddy. And then I didn't, by the time we played Halo that night, I still hadn't watched it. So he's like, all right, I'll just tell you. They finally announced RE3. I'm like, what are you talking about? Wasn't that announced like 2 months ago?
I mean, yeah, it's kind of assumed at this point.
Yeah, I mean, they were releasing, and yeah, that was very disappointing because I don't give a shit about Resident Evil 3. Like, that wasn't like Resident Evil 2, I barely played growing up. Resident Evil 1 I loved, and RE3 I just never played, so like I have no connection to it whatsoever. And it was also something that we'd already gotten like box art and everything like that over the past month and other things. Like it was kind of one of those things where it's like everybody knew it was coming out. I didn't think that was a secret. Like, it's not. Maybe it wasn't like quote unquote official, but in my mind, it had already been announced.
It was official to everyone that cares or watches.
Yeah, and so I was a little disappointed, but I'm really glad that Dan got some enjoyment out of that. That meant a lot to him, and he got a lot of enjoyment out of watching that trailer. But for me, I'm just like, all right. What were your biggest takeaways from the State of Play?
Mostly Resident Evil 3 probably would be the biggest thing. I mean, I'm kind of excited about it just because, obviously the second game was so good. I'm kind of interested to see what kind of changes they make to this third game because, I played those first games on the PlayStation like you did, but I had a lot more fun with 2. Like, I feel like 3 is just kind of remembered for that really interesting Nemesis character. Like, he's kind of more interesting than Mr. X just because it's almost like he's kind of programmed. He'll grow in stars. Like, he's looking after specific people. He's like hunting them down. He's hunting you down, which is really interesting. But like, is that going to get stale? Like, that's really the kind of one note that Resident Evil 3 really had. Like it was kind of a little more stale in the puzzles and the kind of just going through corridors like outside and just it was kind of more of the same. So I'm kind of hoping that they kind of mix it up a little bit. The other huge part of that is that they've been kind of teasing this Project Resistance for the last 4 or 5 months or so, and it got kind of announced that it's going to be kind of launched alongside RE3, so it's going to be part of the game. So if you buy RE3, you're going to be able to play this asymmetrical multiplayer game. You won't have to pay any extra, which is nice because I'm always a little skittish about asymmetrical.
And for those listening, explain what an asymmetrical game is.
So like an asymmetrical game would be something like Evolved, or they have those kind of Friday the 13th games where there's one person that's typically has more powers and they're playing against 3 or 4 other people. So typically the one person will be much more powerful. They'll be like the Predator, or they'll be Jason, or they'll be like a giant monster, and then the 4 other people will be typically like human characters who have to work together and strategize to beat them. My problem with those, and why I'm hesitant, even though there's some really fun ones, like I hear Dead by Daylight's a lot of fun. So they are popular if they're done right, but it's very difficult to get the balancing right on. I feel on those, like,
absolutely.
If you have one person that's really good, like he can demolish people, but on the other hand, if you have 3 people that are really good, like I feel like it's really impossible for the one person to play against 3 coordinated people that are really good on the same team. Like, they have to balance it for maybe one person's good on that team and the 2 people aren't as good, but like there still has to be a challenge on both sides. So then at that point, are they just using rubber banding where it's just Mario Kart and it's fun, but it's really not strategic or challenging? It's just kind of like who gets the last word, who gets the last point wins, something like that.
Which makes it good that this is more or less, instead of being released as a separate $60 game, is more of just a tack on of our Resident Evil 2. Exactly. That seems like the right way to go for it.
Yeah, definitely for me. Like it's something that I was kind of hesitant to give a shot, but now that it's kind of included in this game that I'm definitely going to get, I'm definitely going to try it, especially because, I have avoided most of these asymmetric games, but this is an IP that's at least pretty interesting to me, so I'll be able to kind of give it a more thorough and deep shot as opposed to just writing it off. So, I mean, I'm sure another thing is like I'm sure a lot of people are going to buy this game, so it's not going to be one of those niche games where you can't play with your friends. I would imagine like me, you, and Dan will probably get this game so we can play together. Like I can play with other friends that are really into the Resident Evil games. So that's something else that's exciting about this multiplayer. The only kind of, I'm always trying to think about how this is a negative effect too, is like, okay, does that mean it's not a fully fleshed out game? Because I had thought, when they were teasing this and it was going to be its own separate thing, I would think, okay, it's going to be this big game with lots of maps and lots of progression. But like, if it's just part of RE3, does that mean they're not spending a ton of money on it? Does that mean it's going to be kind of a smaller, like in addition to, where maybe it's not like you're not going to want to spend a ton of time in it? I'm being a little unfair, but
no, you're probably being right in your assumption. I'm assuming that either they have this thing that they think is really good, but it just isn't big enough to be its own game and can easily be connected to RE3, or they have something that's just not up to snuff, and it's like, well, let's just have it with RE3 rather than making a debacle. Capcom's been on a roll these past couple of years. Why not? Why douse it with something like this? But yeah, it's really weird. Like things like Call of Duty, I'll play just for the multiplayer. This I would play just for the campaign and not really worry about the multiplayer or the Resistance game or whatever. I can't think off the top of my head very many. Most asymmetrical games I've played have all been just like a mode of a already team v team multiplayer game. I guess Friday the 13th would be really the only one that comes to mind. I got that for free, thank God, because it was pretty bad. It was fun, and it definitely had those balancing issues you mentioned. But yeah, I mean, I still haven't played the remake of RE2. That's like towards the top of my list to play, but I'm looking forward to playing the RE3 remake. I'm just not like over the moon about it like other people are.
Yeah.
Some things I did. The hugest thing for me about the state of play was when we were at PAX East 2019. I played a lot of indie games. That's like my favorite thing to do at PAX East is to play the indie games, get a chance to get some hands on with them. And there was one that I played that didn't have a name. It was a nameless game. I only knew the studio. It was
I know what you're talking about.
Pillow Castle Games, and it reminded me of Portal, mixed with another game, and I forget what the other game was that it was mixed with, but it felt very much like Portal. It was a lot about moving things with perspective, and you can make things bigger or smaller depending on the perspective and stuff like that. And the game finally has a name. Actually, originally I thought like, oh my God, did these people steal the idea from that indie studio? And then at the end, I looked it up and I'm like, oh good, it is the studio. Good, thank God, because I got a chance to meet the guy. I don't know if he was the lead developer or just one of the guys, or maybe he was the only developer for all I know, but he was very taken aback when I mentioned it in the likes of Portal, but from what I played, it was just that good. But it's called Superliminal, and it's going to be on the PS4. I don't know if it's going to be exclusive or not. And it seems like Epic Games has a role in the release of the game. I don't know if they helped develop it or if they're publishing it, which makes no sense because Epic Games is owned by EA. So I don't know where Epic Games comes into this, but I'm very excited for that game. Another thing is Dreams, which I've heard a lot about. Mostly just, hey, people made this game in Dreams or made this level in Dreams. And I've always been kind of curious as to, it seems like Dreams is almost like a game maker game. And it's coming to PS4, and I'm probably gonna get that or at least rent it because I'm very interested. Because I'm Mario Maker didn't really do it for me, but I love building. Like when I was in Fallout 4, like some of the best moments in Fallout 4 were me building settlements and seeing what I could do with like the electricity and the lights and all that stuff. I loved Minecraft just for building buildings and stuff like that. So I'm really excited to see what I can do in Dreams and what I can make in Dreams. That's very exciting for me.
Yeah, it seems like a U game. Like I don't have the patience for those. I remember I bought RPG Maker for like the PlayStation 1 and I could never get more than like 15 minutes into the game. Like I just want to play a game. I'm so sick of making stuff.
Yeah, it's really... It's difficult because not every game like that will do it for me. Like I'll say it, Mario Maker just didn't do it for me. And Mario Maker 2 I tried for the Switch, and it wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination, but you were just making side-scrolling Mario levels, and that just wasn't doing it for me.
Got too into that.
Something I thought of you when I saw, because it's a PSVR game, was Paper Beast.
Paper Beast?
Yeah, it was a
PSVR. I saw that. It didn't look... I don't know. For some reason, it didn't look very compelling to me. Like, it just kind of
looked a lot like a Journey.
Yeah,
it
looked
where it's like very abstract.
Yeah, it looked like it'd be fun for 5 minutes and then you'd be bored of it. Like I don't know. I'll have to see more to see whether I'm interested in it anymore. But nothing really from that trailer got me really excited. And then they had the announcement of the Untitled Goose Game is finally coming to PlayStation.
Yeah,
and I think it's coming to Xbox too, like next week.
Yeah,
so that's kind of cool that it's like that quick.
Yeah, which I just bought for the Switch.
Have you played it yet?
Weeks ago, a little bit. Yeah, it's super fun.
Yeah, it looks super fun and cute. But it looks like a game where the long turn, like it would kind of lose some of its magic after a while, maybe not be fun for 10 hours or whatever.
Yeah,
this is me just kind of guessing about what I like to play. And then the other thing that was interesting about the state of play was kind of this short Ghost of Tsushima trailer.
At the end.
But like I don't know, for some reason, this game just, I kind of wish Dan was here. I think he's kind of excited about this, but
he's been talking about it for quite a while.
Yeah, I'm just not excited about this game. And I think more than anything, it's because I feel like they haven't shown enough off. Like, okay, great. It's a ninja. It's like a Tenchu style ninja game.
And what they showed was more or less looked like just a pre-rendered cinematic trailer.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so they did kind of imply that there's going to be more at the Game Awards, which is, this
tomorrow.
Thursday. So, I mean, maybe by next week we'll have a lot more things to say about this. Maybe I'll have more positive thoughts about it. But it's like, okay, I understand you're making this game. I understand it's probably going to be your like last or second to last big game on the PS4. But until you show me like some sort of gameplay or something more compelling than, okay, this looks cool and you're putting money behind it. It's the same way I felt about Spider-Man. Like for some reason I couldn't get into Spider-Man until 2 or 3 months before it came out, just because they weren't showing a ton. So I'm just kind of waiting to see more information on this. Were you excited about it all? Like, are you looking forward to this game?
I will say I was the same way about Spider-Man. I mean, I didn't play it until after it came out because a lot of what I was seeing looked like QuickTime events.
Yeah, just like generic-y.
Same thing with Fallen Order. Jedi Fallen Order, it looked kind of bad from what we saw, but then it ended up, you liked it generally, right? All the friends I've talked to have liked it. I'm excited to play it, but yeah, I don't really know much aside from Dan telling me that this game has been coming out. I didn't really ever like look up anything about it because it kind of reminded. There was another game it reminded me of. Maybe Neo was what it kind of reminded me of. It just, I don't know. Nothing about it really sparked my interest.
It doesn't really have an identity yet.
Yeah, but I am interested in the trailer tomorrow. But yeah, I still don't know what this game is. I just know that some people, I keep hearing like blurbs about it. Like people in general are excited.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, not to go off on a different tangent, but I'm kind of excited about the Game Awards tomorrow, just because I feel like over the last 3 years they've gotten kind of more and more important. They've gotten more serious, where it's not just like dumb ads and just like crazy celebrities that don't play video games, but they're actually kind of trying to take it into a more serious direction where the awards actually kind of mean something. And they're actually kind of having, announcements that are kind of meaningful. So like there is kind of this, aura of who knows what could happen tomorrow. Like, who knows what they're going to announce? I mean, it's mostly just people trying to gin themselves up. But like there was, I can't think of at the top of my head, but there were some like announcements last year and some new game trailers that were pretty interesting. So
where can people? All right, when it comes to music, there's the Grammys. When it comes to TV, there's the Emmys. When it comes to movies, there's the Oscars. Or if you're a psychopath, there's that other award show for movies that's not as good. I forget. I don't even remember what it's called. The SAG, the Screen Actors Guild Awards. What is this? The Video Game Awards show?
That's what they're trying to do.
It's so here. Right, here's my memory. 9-10 years ago, I don't remember when it started. Spike TV, hosted by Samuel L. Jackson, had the Video Game Awards, and it looked just stupid. They were going to have a trailer for Transformers during it, like the Michael Bay Transformers, and it was on Spike TV, which I already didn't take seriously as a channel. Is this still on Spike, or what's now called the Paramount Network? Is that where this is, or is it online, or like where can people where do I see this?
That's a good question. I'm
gonna look it up right now.
I usually typically just watch it online. Like I know you like the day or before the day of, I can just look like, oh, here's where it's streaming live. Like I'm sure you can just watch it on YouTube. I'm sure that's where kind of these days most of the people are gonna watch it. Most of the people that are kind of younger, and I mean how many people even have cable at this point? I don't even know if it's playing on any cable stations, but it is going to be, I feel like, definitely watched by a lot of people, especially like industry, I'm sure.
We can vote.
Yeah,
I don't know if our votes count.
There's a bunch of judges that are voting on the kind of the different categories, but also people can vote, and they have like a certain weight to the, kind of just user votes. So you can do that too, which is kind of interesting to see. Potentially we could sway categories in different directions for awards. But
so I guess this one's been going since 2014.
Okay, yeah, with Jeff Keighley,
whatever that is. Who?
Jeff Keighley. He's the guy that hosts it every year.
Oh, okay, that's news to me. He's
a guy that's been in the industry for a long time. He actually kind of knows. It's not like Samuel L. Jackson where he's like, let's just pay this guy. People know his face. A bunch of money.
All these. Hideo Kojima's on the advisory board. So is Phil Spencer, Doug Bowser. Rockstar Games, a bunch of like major actual. Yeah, it seems like it's actually the people making and doing games.
Yeah. So last year they had the three heads of Xbox. They had Reggie from Nintendo, and they had from someone from Sony, like the top guys from all those. Come out and like say like an introduction or whatever. So it's just it feels like it's kind of being supported from kind of every angle of the industry, which is kind of nice to have this nice centralized award show finally for video games instead of this jokey thing or just kind of this like, oh, we're gonna do something on the side. It's like this is the kind of definitive award show, which gives it a little bit more clout. But
yeah, and also just to clarify, Reggie's not dead. That was just me.
Yes.
The show airs
He is going to be presenting an award, I believe, at the game, even though he retired.
Nice.
Just kind of like a nice little callback. So that's kind of cool.
The Game Awards airs live and free on Thursday, December 12th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 Pacific. The show airs across all major digital, social, and gaming platforms around the world. Okay, so that gives me... So this seems like... And I've been asking... Every time I ask this question of you or Dan, I can never get a straight answer. Me reading that, I'm like, okay, this is legit. This isn't just like Spike TV host or MTV hosting the music video awards or some BS like that. It's like, this is an online, which, by the way, is where all of your demographic lives, is online, and it's... with actual people from the gaming industry. The people do get some voice. I don't know how much it matters, but you can watch online for free. That's perfect. I now feel a little better about this award show. I had it in my mind that it was not a very legitimate thing. Now it feels a little more legitimate.
Yeah, it's definitely legitimate. I mean, some of the categories I don't remember all them off the top of my head, but some of the categories do seem kind of like lame. Like there's like, which one has the biggest social impact award? And it's just like, I want to learn about what's the best video games, best categories, like newest, whatever. I don't want any sort of agendas. I just want to know like straight up awards and announcements. But for the most part, it seems like they do a good job of kind of
So did you watch last year?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, and I remember enjoying it. It was pretty good, and there was, I think the thing that, I've never cared about who wins an Oscar or Best Director, and I honestly don't really care about who wins, the best, PlayStation, the best family game or the best game of the game. Like it'll be kind of interesting to talk about that next week, who won the best game. But I mean, I think what I'm going to watch it for, and what most people will probably watch it for, is the fact that it's one of those things where you never know, and it seems like every year there's a little bit more and more information, like a little bit more and more announcements, because it seems to be getting more eyes, so the industry is kind of more apt to say, all right, let's make our big announcement here, because it's like we're not ready for E3, we don't want to do it then. Like it's a good time, for this 3-month period where people are more thinking about the holidays and getting these new big releases. Like if you're going to release any information, this is kind of the only time in this period where you can kind of make a little bit of a splash and hit some websites and news articles.
It started with superhero movies, but yeah, it's nice to know video games have more of a mainstay in like the media right now. Like it's not just like some dumb kids thing, there's people of all ages playing video games, and this is just a good representation of that. Do you think there's going to be any other big announcements, like big trailers at the Game Awards show? I've been hearing some rumblings about Grand Theft Auto 6.
Really? I haven't heard that. I don't know. I feel like there will be stuff that I can't even guess right now. Like I would imagine there'd be like one or two, for games that are coming out maybe next year. There was a lot of rumors that the Resident Evil 3 was going to be announced here, but then it didn't. So that's like one that's not going to be. I really can't even guess to what it's going to be. Like,
Dan mentioned that he heard that the Metroid Prime Trilogy might finally be announced during it.
That'd be nice.
That'd be huge. I would love that.
Yeah, I mean, like, so Dan's been teasing at me. Dan was saying like, oh, maybe Legend of Dragoon will be announced on the State of Play, and I was like, oh, it's not going to be announced on the State of Play, and I don't think it's going to be announced. I'm not even sure, because we've talked about those kind of Blue Point Gaming tweets that have mentioned Legend of Dragoon, so they might be working on something. But
Blue Point, what
is that? Is that the Twitter?
Oh, the checkmark thing, like the verified.
No, that game company that's makes all the remakes.
Yeah.
Those very cryptic tweets they do.
That long.
I think they're called Blue Point Gaming.
Yeah, I doubt they're working on as many games as they were alluding to in that tweet.
Yeah, there were like 5 or 6, and they released another one more recently, and it was kind of like Dark Souls / Legend of Dragoon.
Which Dark Souls, they're not remaking Dark Souls. That's already been
people seem to want a Dark Souls remake, but
they
it's
already
like,
did that, didn't they?
Or was that just like a remaster? They didn't really do like a
I don't think anybody's clamoring for a full-on remake.
Yeah, it's not that old of a game. Like you can play the game. It doesn't need to be like
also, what would you
looking.
really change about it except for graphics?
Yeah, it's strange. It's just a weird thing that people want. Like you can still play Dark Souls. It plays fine. Like Legend of Dragoon is so old, and it'd be nice to have voice act, kind of like how they're doing with Final Fantasy. So I mean, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Even if it is going to happen, I think he's a little more positive about that ever happening than I am, even with the little hints.
And even after him talking about the possibility of a Metroid Prime trilogy, I'm pretty close to giving up on that. But like, I would absolutely.
I feel like you've been talking
floored.
about that for like a year or two.
Yeah, it's. I just thought it would happen by now. I thought it was going to happen in January of 2019, and we're almost in January of 2020 now.
Yeah, it's strange because I mean, I've been hearing that too. It's not like you've been making this up since the Switch has come out, and you would think it would be such an obvious thing because people love Metroid games. I don't think Metroid games typically sell as well as people in the West think they
don't.
do.
Oh, they don't.
They're one of the worst.
That's why
franchises
they don't make
Nintendo.
A lot of them.
But yeah, the people that do like them are really into them. But you think this would be kind of a good middle ground? Like, I mean, they are making the Metroid Prime 4, but this seems like okay, we can get people back to learn about the people that didn't have those systems, or maybe they didn't play them as recently. This will hold them over till 4 and get them excited about 4.
It
seems like an easy thing to say to greenlight.
Yeah, and it is very weird that. Sorry, excuse me. It is very weird that the Metroid games never sold well because, for the most part, none of them, unless you count Metroid. What was that one for the Wii where she talked? I don't know. There was one for the Wii where they actually gave a voice to Samus, but outside of that, all of them have been revered as not just good games, but some of the best games. So
those Metroid Prime games were fantastic. Some of the best GameCube games.
It is weird that they never sold well. I mean, Super Metroid is regarded as like some people's favorite game in general. I mean, Metroid Prime, that entire series could have just been, because of the low sales of the GameCube. But yeah, they've never sold as good as Zelda games. They've never sold as good as Mario games. And I don't know if maybe that's just because they're not as easy to pick up. But you think throughout the early 2000s, look how popular Halo was around that time. I'm surprised Metroid didn't have like that same impact. So I'm really hoping that Metroid Prime Trilogy sells well. And yeah, I did think it was going to come out sooner as kind of an apology for the delay of Metroid Prime 4.
And I think it's one of those things where like the Japanese audience typically like they love Mario and Zelda like we do, but for some reason they just don't give a rat's butt about Metroid like we do. Like it seems like it's something that for some reason we like a lot more than they do.
The games just don't sell well in general, across the board. Like people are going out in droves to get Sonic and Mario at the Olympic Games, but they won't give like Metroid a look. It's very strange.
Yeah, it is concerning. That's another thing. Now that we're talking about Metroid Prime, like when do you think Metroid Prime 4 is going to come out? Because they delayed it like a year ago, right? They had that announcement video.
But they didn't say how long. A, they didn't have an original release date to begin with, and B, they didn't say how long they delayed it for. I'm assuming they had to restart from scratch.
Yeah, I'm so surprised we haven't heard anything. Like maybe it's not going to be
I'm not surprised.
Not until like E3 of next year. Maybe we'll hear
something. Nintendo releasing that title card for Metroid Prime 4 was very outside of the box from them because they normally don't do that. They normally don't release information that early, and it's because of situations like this that they don't.
Yeah.
They rarely delay games. Animal Crossing and Metroid have both been delayed in the past years. So that's very odd in and of itself.
Yeah, I wonder if we're going to get Metroid Prime 4 or the kind of Breath of the Wild sequel first.
Oh, Breath of the Wild sequel first, definitely.
Yeah, just because
they have it.
You think? Yeah, I mean they've released more videos of it, and it does almost seem like it'd be easier to develop because they can just kind of
reuse a lot of the assets.
So it's kind of not going to take as much.
I think that's probably going to be one of their. I actually wouldn't be surprised if Breath of the Wild 2 comes out in 2020. Because right now, I don't know what Nintendo's slate is for 2020 because Pokemon just came out. I haven't heard any rumblings about another mainstay Mario game.
Yeah, Animal Crossing's Q1, and then they're kind of empty, right?
Smash Brothers, Mario Kart, those have already been done. Like Zelda launched with the thing, so theoretically, if Metroid Prime 4 is far away, that's like the next big pillar to hit on.
Yeah, I wonder because Animal Crossing is going to come out in Q1. That'll be probably pretty big for them. But then there's going to be my guess is there's going to be a pretty blank summer for this system, and they're going to have to pull out all the stops for Q4
to not get overshadowed.
Yeah, they're gonna have to fight this overshadowing and overpowering of these new fancy consoles that are gonna be a lot more powerful. Like so powerful that like at this point you can still get Witcher 3 and you can get Doom. Like you can get these ports that are just a little bit less than, but they're so much more accessible and you can travel with them. So it kind of makes up for the fact that maybe it doesn't look as good as it does on the PS4.
The Switch is starting to show its limitations, though.
Yeah, exactly. So when these new systems come out, you're not going to be able to port Halo. Not that they would port Halo 5, but a game like Halo or the Halo 6 or Infinite or whatever it is, whatever the new games are, they're not going to be able to port them to the Switch. So it's like, all right, they're going to have to either get like a Switch Pro or like an upgrade.
They definitely need one.
Or something like that to be able to get these newer games to be ported, or they're just going to have to, I don't know, do something.
Nintendo's known for having extremely good quality control, and there's a lot of their games where I'm seeing the lag because the Switch just can't handle what they're trying to do. So I don't know. It's hard to say what they're going to do. If I had to guess, they're going to do a price drop for the Switch come next November, along with Breath of the Wild 2 coming out. And that's going to be huge for them. And then the year following, I think that they're going to have a Switch Pro come out. If that was my guess.
But then what do they do with the Switch Pro? Are they going to split the user base where these kind of newer ports will only be playable on the Pro, or is it like, because that's kind of a whole another conundrum?
I mean, they shot themselves in the foot. We're in this at this point because of the Wii U. They shot themselves in the foot with the Wii U.
Yeah, then they released the Switch earlier than the other systems.
Yeah, they had to release the Switch like midway through, and Nintendo goes by the beat of their own drum. That's what they've always done. They don't need to go in the same cycle as everybody else. They haven't done that since the Wii U.
The problem is, like, Nintendo games, as strong as they are, you can't really support a console on just Nintendo games. You can for a little while, but like it's not going to be able to sell 7 years off of Mario, Zelda, Metroid, Animal Crossing, Pokemon.
Yeah.
Like this, you need to be at least also be able to get third-party games.
And I think that's why the Switch came out early. I think that their original plan was to release Breath of the Wild with the Wii U, and they just knew that it really wasn't going to amount to much, and they needed the Switch to come out.
And the timing was great for then, because when you release the Switch, you can make it cheaper and you can make it portable and you can make it almost as powerful as these systems because they've been out for 4 or 5 years. This is like newer technology.
So if you think about it, though, if 2020 is the year of the PS5 and maybe the Xbox Scarlet, where we're still not really sure if that's coming out on time anymore.
I assume so, but
would 2021 be reasonable for Switch's next huge upgrade where it can
just like a Switch 2 almost, or just a Pro?
I don't know. You made a good point there, because it's like, they got to go big.
Yeah.
They can't just do what they did for years between the game. That the GameCube all the way through the Wii U, all the same processor, it was just overclocked. Like, they can't do that. They can't just take the existing technology in the Switch and just make it a little better. They really have to like try to get as close as they can to whatever they can do to like meeting the expectations of what the PS5 and Xbox are bringing, which again, they don't need like, oh my God, like 18 processors and like 1 million gigs of RAM or anything like that. But I would say a Switch 2. Yeah. Or not calling it the Switch 2, but definitely a successor.
Yeah, the more that we're talking about it now, I think it would make sense for them to, these new systems are going to come out at the end of Q4 of 2020. Let's say Q4 of 2021 or maybe the first half of 2022, they release the Switch 2, but it's backwards compatible, so it can play all your old games. You don't have to freak out. You can still play Odyssey. You can still play Breath of the Wild, play Metroid 4, whatever it's going to come out. But it'll also be able to play newer games, and it'll have some new bells and whistles, and it'll be able to play ports of the PS5 games and the Scarlet games to really kind of keep it in the same weight class as those systems.
And that's been the Achilles heels of Nintendo for a very long time, is that they can either play ports of last gen games or they can barely play ports of this gen games. Yeah. I remember when the Wii U came out. The Wii U came out in 2013, and its big thing when it first came out was, look, you can play Batman Arkham City. You remember that game that came out like 4 years prior on a previous generation system? And I'm like, oh, this is a bad sign of things to come. And well, here we are.
Yep.
So, I mean, the fact that they're getting things like The Witcher and Doom on there are impressive, but I haven't seen what The Witcher looks like on it. I can't imagine it looks nearly as good as it does on console.
Yeah, I've seen some videos. Like it's kind of one of those things. It's the same feeling people had about Doom, where like this isn't the way you want to play this game. But if you have it, if you have commutes on the bus, or like if you're a big Nintendo guy, like it's definitely a fine way to play it. It's just not the best way to play it.
So we'll see what happens. I mean, Nintendo's really good at surprising us. There was a couple more things I wanted to mention about the state of play. Couple things that took me by surprise, actually. I
can't even remember anything else.
I guess one
that
more
happened.
thing. I guess there's really only one more thing.
Okay, I was like, I don't remember a lot of things outside of Resident Evil that really happened.
So, Kingdom Hearts 3 came out last January.
Oh, great.
And the two things that I knew people complained about, or at least me watching footage, the one thing I complained about is, where's all the Final Fantasy? There's no Final Fantasy characters.
Yeah, ridiculous.
The other thing, because I was watching some Kingdom Hearts 3 footage recently because I wasn't going to play the game. And they mentioned this box, this mysterious box that a couple of the villains were looking for. And my girlfriend was really upset because, I guess, a spoiler alert if you plan on playing Kingdom Hearts 3 and you didn't yet. But there's a lot of storylines that went unfinished by the end of the game, including that box. They just kind of kept
spent a lot of time saying nothing in that game.
So the two things I saw in this new expansion trailer for Kingdom Hearts 3 is loaded with Final Fantasy characters, and they're bringing up that box like no tomorrow. So it's like, all right, we heard you fans. You want some Final Fantasy? Here's your Final Fantasy. You want us to finish up the loose ends of the storyline? Here's the loose ends of the storyline. I don't know how true this is. I saw $40 figures somewhere in there, so I don't know how big this expansion is to warrant something like that.
Yeah, that would be a big expansion.
Is that something now? Would you ever try to go back? Because you did all of the Kingdom Hearts.
I don't think so.
Did it take all of the steam out of you?
Yeah, because the end of last year, I literally went through Kingdom Hearts 1. I played all the dumb DS games. I played all those, the PS, literally every main, except for the phone games, I played through start to finish every Kingdom Hearts game to get ready for Kingdom Hearts 3. I was like, you know what? I want to be one of those people that understands this game. I don't. The storyline and what's happening. But I think I understood it more than most people. And then just how disappointing and dull and nonsensical the third was, even compared to the other ones, which, were fun, but their story started to unravel and get more crazy and kind of you couldn't really follow it, and it wasn't as interesting as maybe the first one or the second one before it kind of unraveled. It almost didn't even have a story. It was just kind of nonsensical. Okay, they're going to these different. It was almost like, okay, let's see how many Disney properties we can get in. Let's throw in Frozen. People love Frozen. It wasn't. Let's make a cool story.
Yeah, and then which definitely all delayed the game.
Yeah, like you were saying, they took out literally any mention of the Final Fantasy characters, which is okay. There's this. This is a mainline game in this series, and you're taking out this huge component of the game and all these characters that you kind of saw in every game, and they're just all of a sudden gone with no explanation. And I know a lot of people, especially people that are playing video games, they're coming to this for Disney, they're coming to this for Final Fantasy characters, and they just took away half of that.
Oh yeah,
and then they took out a lot of the story and stuff too. So I really just am not. I'm probably not going to get into it. I'm not unless it gets amazing reviews. I kind of stopped playing the game right at the last chapter. I looked it up and I was like, okay, there's a bunch of, it's one of those annoying things where it's a bunch of boss runs you have to do at the end. It's not, so it's there's no more worlds for me to explore. It's just I got to fight a bunch of bosses, and I'm not really invested in any of these characters, and I'm just kind of annoyed at the game at this point.
Yeah.
So I would have to kind of go through that and try to remember what was happening in the story and then start this expansion. So I feel for me specifically, it's not going to probably pull me back, but I guess I'd be kind of interested to see if other people enjoy it or like it or
so
whatnot.
The trailer, it's called Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind, for whatever reason. It seems like the gist I got from the trailer was Sora's lost and his friends and everybody are trying to find him. You do see Aeris in... All right, you played all the Kingdom Hearts games. Why is Squall called Leon? What's the deal with that?
There's no real reason. He's just always called Leon since Kingdom Hearts 1. I don't think they really explain it or anything like that.
So there's no reason behind that whatsoever.
Yep, just for funs. I'm not sure if that's his name in Japan or something.
I don't know. I thought it was something to do with Final Fantasy VIII, because even on this, I'm reading an article on CNET right now, and it even says Final Fantasy VIII Squall, or Leon as he's known in the Kingdom Hearts universe. And it's why? Why is he known that in the Kingdom Hearts universe? But you see Squall, Aerith, and Yuffie in the trailer. So you see some Final Fantasy characters in there, and whatever. Sora's missing. It's coming out January 23rd on PS4 and February 25th on Xbox One.
That's funny, because
it's right around the corner.
So you're saying January 23rd? Because that's the same day that Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Remastered comes out, which is another Square property. It's strange that Final Fantasy is not as big as Kingdom Hearts, or Crystal Chronicles. I'm surprised they would have that on literally the same day. Two RPGs that are releasing, they're kind of in the same
wonder if maybe
fan base.
DLC will have like a demo for it or something like that.
I don't know. That's just kind of a really strange date to pick because that's actually I'm more excited about the Crystal Chronicles. I kind of have some reverence for that game back in the day, playing with my friends and having to play it with like 4 Game Boy Advances and link cables is such a disaster. This will be nice to actually find. It apparently has cross play and online play, so it'll be nice to actually be able to play this game with my friends and not have to deal with like, okay, I got to convince them to buy Game Boy Advances and link cables. Like that's something I'm actually excited to get next month. So it's kind of strange. It's getting overshadowed.
The price for the standard Remind DLC version in Kingdom Hearts 3 is $30. But for $40, you can buy Remind DLC, which comes bundled with a concert video. So for $30, you get the DLC. For $40, you get the DLC and the concert. That's pretty. If this has to be huge DLC, if it's $30, that's pretty steep.
Yeah, we'll see
for DLC.
You would hope so. I wonder how long it's gonna be.
Yeah, but like I'm so disconnected from that game franchise in general that it didn't really affect me. Like
it's so strange because one of the things that is so great about those games is going into those like new separate worlds. So I wonder if this remaster is going to have. Are you going to be going back to the same worlds you went to in 3, or are they going to add a couple new properties to kind of freshen it up, or is it going to be a completely different kind of model where it's not you're going to different Disney worlds? Maybe you're going to different Final Fantasy worlds. That'd be kind of interesting.
Yeah,
I doubt they're going to do that, but I mean it's just kind of getting my mind thinking about how they structure like a full expansion that's going to be half the price of the full game. How do they make that interesting?
I don't know. The only other thing I saw that was worth mentioning from the State of Play was Babylon's Fall or Babylon Falls. I can't remember which. It's a Square Enix Platinum Games kind of combined effort. It just looked like a kind of a hack and slash.
Yeah, it looks like another thing where like I didn't have enough information to make a judgment on it.
Yeah, like didn't look very interesting to me.
Yeah, me neither.
There was something I wanted to bring up at the end of the last podcast, unless you have anything more you want to say about the State of Play.
No, I'm good.
I'm run out of bullet points for the State of Play.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I'm surprised we were able to talk about it that long because I was,
we like intermingled some like Nintendo Switch console,
I guess,
theories and everything like that. What if I told you that there was a game, a console exclusive that came out in 2019?
Okay, all right.
That was not an indie game.
Not an indie game.
It's a major game.
Big
console
one.
Exclusive.
Yep.
That has an 87 Metascore and an 8.9 user score. So users and critics both loved this game. And neither you, me, nor Dan has played it.
Really?
Would you be able to guess what game that is?
No.
It was just.
I'm just wondering about the genre because there's a lot of genres where like
I don't even really know what genre it is.
It's not like Sekiro's a game that I was not interested in, even though I can respect that it was a good
Sekiro.
Yeah, okay, I didn't know that, but I'm just kind of using it as an example. That's a game where like even if it got good reviews, I would be like, which it did. I'm not really interested in a game like that.
It's considered action adventure general. I didn't know general was a game
adventure
type.
General.
I think general was like kind of.
Was
like
it on PS4
subtype.
and an Xbox?
It was on. No, it's an exclusive for the Switch.
For the Switch.
Yeah, Astral Chain.
I've heard of that, but I've never played it.
It was just one of those games where it didn't fly under my radar because I kept seeing ad after ad after ad for it, but just didn't look like I knew Platinum Games was making it. It just did not look like something I would be interested in. And it's just funny because it's gotten some. The reason I brought this up is because we're doing kind of like our little bit of research right now for our Game of the Year stuff that we're going to be doing next weekend, and that was one of the games that came up, and I'm like, oh my god, that's that game that everybody said was really good, and I didn't play, and Matt never brought it up, Dan never brought it up. It's an action adventure. It kind of looks like a kind of a sci-fi, almost beat 'em up game, but I could never really tell what it was.
Yeah, it looks like a cross between like a beat 'em up and like a Phantasy Star game. Like it's almost like I'm having that same problem. Where I'm looking online at all the screenshots now, and I still couldn't really explain it to you. So it seems like maybe I'd have to watch some videos to really see if this is something I'd be interested in. But
yeah, let's just for shits and giggles, let's go to the old Wikipedia and read what they say as like a description of the game. No, Wikipedia, I don't want to give you money today.
How dare you?
It's an action adventure game where the player assumes the role of a detective from the Neuron Special Police Task Force who are tasked with solving cases and investigating incidents that take place in the Ark, quote unquote,
Jesus.
the game's main world. Exploring the world, questioning non-playable characters, and examining evidence yields clues and logic puzzles that become leads, which further the investigation process, which is funny because every screenshot I saw was just like an action-paced game. It didn't have anything to do with investigating anything. During the course of the game, the officers access the Astral Chain, an interdimensional area where they must traverse hazardous terrain, solve puzzles, and battle enemies. Oh, so it's kind of like there's the real world, and then there's this Astral Plane. That's very interesting. And they're able to summon a feathered familiar known as a Legion, bound by a chain. That's where it gets its name. In the game's namesake, Legions come in various forms, sporting different abilities that are used for both puzzle solving and combat. From the description, it sounds like something that's right up my alley. Like it's detective work combined with puzzle solving, but combined with some action, which are all things that I love. Like that screams Zelda, for crying out loud. But just anytime I saw like a video screenshot, it was all just the action. It looked like just like a hack and slash. So this might be a game that I like. When I get my GameFly subscription back, which I'm probably going to do relatively soon now that things are starting to slow down. This might be one of the first things I rent just to try it out. Yeah,
it looks like, because just talking about it and seeing some of the screenshots and your description, it does look like something that I'd like to try. But again, I'm in such a spot where I've got like the next 8 games of my play, like especially some long, like this Final Fantasy Theories.
Right. You don't need to play those games immediately. Why don't you take a break between the Final Fantasies and the Gears?
I'll probably do that. I probably won't play the Gears right away because
are you gonna get to the end of FF13 and really want to play the other two?
I'm gonna want to try them. It depends on how worse or decent or long they are. I think FF10 or 13.2 is not quite as long. So if it's not as long and it's not like markedly worse, then I'll try to get through it. It'll be just nice to be able to play that game and have all the backstories fresh in my head.
I suppose someone's got to play it. I mean, I'm kind of living through you because I don't want myself to experience these games, but I still kind of want to know generally how they are. Yeah. So I'm like I said, I'm glad you're playing them, so I don't have to. Thanks for taking the bullet for me, Matt.
Anything.
I was looking at all of the games that came out last year, and for some reason, Astral Chain is just the one that stood out to me as this is revered by both critics and users as an amazing game, and we haven't touched it because usually it's one or the other. Like Red Dead Redemption 2. I don't remember what the user scores were for Red Dead Redemption 2, but I think they were a lot lower. Like critic scores had it through the roof. User scores were maybe a little more mixed. Like I feel like not often do you have like a solid like the Metacritic score was 87, the user score was like 8.9. That's like fairly solid, and like those are like when I see a critic score that's like 8.5 or something like that, or 8.7 or whatever it was, and a user score that's like 89 out of 100. I don't know why, but that screams like legitimate scores to me.
Yeah, and I'm surprised. I'm more surprised that Dan hasn't played it than either of us, because it seems like right up his alley. He seems to always not let those kind of little, not indie games, but little less well-known games get by him. Like he's always playing these really good games that we don't really notice in our radar.
Yeah,
so I'm just surprised that it seems to have passed him
despite what people think, Dan doesn't necessarily play every single game. He still has to have a want to play those games. Like every game he does buy, he does strike him in one sense or the other. So he probably, kind of like me or kind of like you, he probably just saw footage of this game and just thought that, it's just some like weird kind of beat 'em up Switch title that's not really going to interest me.
Yeah, it might be one of those games that just doesn't market well, like that you can't explain in like even the way you described it. It's like I still don't understand what this game is, what you actually do.
It sounds like you're doing kind of detective work and puzzle solving in the real world, and then kind of like action based mini. Is
that like Professor Layton, or
no?
Is that
you're
I
don't know. It's might be something that I might want to just like watch gameplay of it first, but yeah, I mean, if anybody listening has played Astral Chain and can give it like a seal of approval, please, you can tweet at us at manabarpodcast on Twitter or email us at manabarpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. It's definitely something, after reading that description aloud live on this podcast.
Do you know when it came out? Like when in the year it came out?
Oh, August 30th.
Oh, that's fairly recent.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I remember seeing it on the Nintendo E3 reel, and I just, whatever I saw on it, it just looked like Platinum Games. Here's kind of a cel-shaded beat 'em up. game, like had I bothered to do a little more of my own detective work, I probably would have realized like, oh, this is much more than just a beat 'em up, but I didn't do that.
Yeah, I wonder if it sold well if we're like the only three schmucks that don't really know a lot about this game. But I mean, I haven't heard about it a lot. Like I watch a lot of YouTubers and I watch Giant Bomb, and I just peruse IGN pretty frequently. So I'm kind of hitting all the places on the internet, and I recognize the name and I've heard people talk about it positively, but I don't think I've heard of people like really talk about it extensively.
Especially because it's a Switch. And I mean, maybe it being a Switch exclusive, but not a Nintendo property, maybe that has something to do with it.
Yeah, because that's kind of like an audience where, a lot of people that like those kind of action-y games are kind of be more often playing on PS4 or Xbox.
Yeah, but if it's, people usually really only gravitate towards the Switch for the exclusives. So, I'm looking at the reception right now. Amazing reception down the board, but I can't see anything about sales. Astral Chain launched at number 1 on the UK physical charts, number 2 on the Japan physical charts, and number 10 on the NPD charts for August. It sold 46,000 physical copies within the first 3 weeks, in Japan. It was nominated for Nintendo Game of the Year at the Golden Joystick Awards. I don't know what the hell that means. I guess we'll see if it makes any appearances at the Game Awards tomorrow.
Yeah, they already released the kind of nominees, so I mean, it's out there if it is on any of those categories.
Is Death Stranding just all over it?
Death Stranding is in a few categories.
Is it going to be the Gravity of the Game Awards tomorrow? Dude, there was one Academy Awards show I watched where Gravity like had 1 million awards, and I'm just sitting there like, it's just a movie about Sandra Bullock and George Clooney floating around in space. How could it possibly get that many awards? So
I don't know. We'll see.
It's funny. Hideo Kojima's on the advisory board for the Game Awards. That's going to be kind of interesting.
There's a little controversy there because Jeff Keighley's kind of close with him too. But I mean, supposedly neither of them get to vote on what the best games are. So technically, there shouldn't be any issue, assuming there's no like tampering. Which I mean, I would assume there's not.
I want to believe that there's not. Like, I don't think like with movies, these studios will send out at the end of the year, the calendar year, film studios will send out kind of like, I want to say care packages, but they're more like, hey, remember us for consideration for an Academy Award. They'll send that stuff out. I don't think video games are doing that.
Yeah.
So I will see. But yeah, Astral Chain, if anybody knows anything about it and wants to recommend it, please let us know. So Matt, I thought of this shortly before the podcast today, and I thought I want to bounce it off you first.
Certainly.
Before I go saying anything. But I thought, we told everybody recently that we were going to be doing a Game of the Year
year.
So I thought, why not present the categories now?
Go for it.
Ahead of time.
Get people ruminating.
And now I made this note. For some reason, we had a little luncheon, a work luncheon, where we wrote down all these categories. And for some reason, I wrote one twice. And I couldn't figure out why, but I found a good replacement for it. I don't know if you saw that message.
Yeah, I saw it.
So, all right. So we were going to do game. This is going to be a very interesting experience for us. It's definitely going to be, not something that's, I think, going to be. It's going to be just interesting in the fact that all of us are going to have very different opinions, and like I feel like you're of the opinion that we need to come to a conclusion for each one of these as what is voted for this category, which I think is very interesting. It's gonna cause some.
What's the point of doing it if we don't have final definite? This is the Manabar gaming.
Basically, it's going to come down to each one of us is going to have a different opinion, and then one of the three of us is going to have to just say like, all right, I lost. I'm siding with this person. That's what's going to be. But so here are the categories:
deals and trading. It could be anything.
First category was obviously Game of the Year, which I think is pretty self-explanatory. Second one was most disappointing game of the year. Then this is my personal favorite. Number 3 is biggest dumpster fire of 2019. Now that doesn't necessarily need to be a game, just biggest in the video game genre or world, whatever it may be, the biggest dumpster fire of 2019. Most happening moment, a word we've coined many times on this podcast. That's going to be probably the only one where I can't see us having a clear winner, because I think in each of our minds each of us had our own happening moment of 2019. So I don't really know how we're going to come to a conclusion on that.
Someone's going to win, Andy.
Okay, someone's got to win.
Someone's going to win that category.
Late to the game award. Again, that's not something that this is like best game we've played all year that came out prior to 2019. All of us have played different games that came out prior to 2019, especially you. Like, I'm not going to vote for Final Fantasy 13 because I didn't play for it. All right.
I'm not going to.
If we had to pick,
it's not best game I played. It's best game,
out
we've
of
played.
the ones we've played.
So if you played a game that's better than mine, which
so
would
then we have to pick the best one.
Correct.
That's gonna suck if it was like one of us played an amazing game, but the other one played like fucking BioShock or something like that. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Little suspect to me. We'll see what happens.
We'll go through it at the game, but I think you're missing the point that this isn't necessary. I mean, no top 10 list or no awards thing is really like this is the definite best of this of the
just
video
the
games.
Generalized conclusion.
This is just according to us, according to the Manabar podcast. This is the best game that we've played this year, or whatever. This is the best that. So, I mean, we're only defending it from our point of view. So if someone disagrees with us, that's fine. They don't have a say in what the best dumpster fire of 2019 according to Manabar.
I disagree with you on how we're doing these awards.
Okay, well maybe that's a separate off air conversation we need to have.
So that was the first 5, and these are basically going to be two 2-hour-long bonus episodes that are basically going to take place of the Christmas week because everyone's going to be away doing their own holiday.
We
thing.
typically record these on a Wednesday, which falls directly on Christmas.
Yeah.
So we're gonna take that day off, Christmas.
Yeah, basically.
But we'll have audio for the game of the year, so there'll still be content there.
Yeah. Number 6 was biggest announcement. Number 7 was best multiplayer experience. Number 8, best console exclusive. Number 9, best indie title, and I suppose at some point we'd have to actually define what
indie, or if it's
counts
subjective
as an indie title. Then number 10 is, I wrote down biggest announcement again, which I don't know if I just had like a seizure or something, which I've been known to do, but I decided that number 10, because we're at 2019, should be best game of the decade.
That's gonna be rough.
That is going to be really rough. And obviously Dan's not here, so he's going to have to be told this soon, since I don't know how privy he is to the messages I put on the Discord. So those are the 10 categories. And what I really want to do is I really want to hear from all of you, the listeners, to see, is that a good set of categories? Is there something we should do differently? Maybe you have an idea. Like Dan had this like weird bracket idea of doing the awards, which I didn't like. I just thought, let's just go down them as a list and talk about them. We're definitely going to have to time it though. If we're trying to get through 5 questions in 2 hours, we're gonna have definitely have these are gonna get heated. It's gonna be
take as long as it takes, Andy.
All right, fine, take as long as it takes. Never mind. No time. No structure. Matt doesn't like being efficient.
Well, it's gonna be a structure. I mean, did we decide on that? I was assuming 1 winner and 2 runners up.
I don't know. No, we didn't decide anything.
Right.
We're pretty bad at our work meetings. We don't really come away.
Well, the problem is you're bringing the work meeting on the air, so we're having these discussions without answers yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's a short pod.
I blame you.
Oh no, I mostly just wanted to get the listeners a little wet with the feeling of like what our categories are being. But I really want to post these out on social media, see what everybody thinks of the categories. I'd like to get some outside opinions. I would say that there's a lot of them that are definitely going to be the categories. But I think that there's a couple of them where we might be able to find something better if possible.
Sure.
But so those are the categories. And then, on December, I think it's December 20th, we're going to be 20th or the 21st. We're going to be recording the 2 specials that day. Yeah, the 21st. We're going to be recording the 2 specials that day and then releasing them the week following.
Yeah.
As 2 specials in lieu of a regular episode that week. So yeah, those are the categories. I'm pretty excited to talk about them. It's just going to be very interesting from my perspective because I've just played way less games this year than you and Dan. So
which is fine. Like you can still have opinions on games we've played.
In my opinion, I can also tell you what I think is like the best game of the year without having me actually played it, because like for instance I just mentioned earlier Final Fantasy VII might be my favorite game, but I don't think it's the best game. It's just my favorite. There's a difference. I can differentiate between the two. I think there is one person at this table that's not going to be able to differentiate from what's the best and what's his favorite. I'm not going to name any names. It might be Dan. It might be Death Stranding. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Oh, God. He better not try to make that game of the year. I'll punch him in the face.
He 100% is.
Oh, my God.
I guess you didn't think he was going to do that as game of the year? It's what he's playing right now, and he is saying that he's 100% in the game and loving every second of it.
All right. I guess we'll have that discussion.
You also played all the way through it.
Yes.
So,
it is not the game of the year.
Okay. I have some strong opinions on what shouldn't be game of the year, but I'm going to save it.
All right, yeah, we'll discuss. We've got plenty of time
I do know that last time we talked on the podcast last week, Dan was leaning towards that as still his game of the year nomination.
It'll be an interesting discussion.
I haven't actually even really thought. I don't even know yet.
Yeah, I haven't thought about these categories yet, so I'll have to.
We probably should because it's like a week and a half away. So we definitely need to get going on that. Just a little. We've given them a lot of peeks behind the curtains today with our processes behind the podcast, but that's fine.
Our processes are our lack of processes.
We're a man down. We needed to fill up the show with something because it doesn't really look like a lot else happened. And Matt and I failed to really play anything new, although we did talk about Final Fantasy XIII for quite a while, which was very interesting. But I didn't.
Yeah, we had some interesting talks today. But yeah, like you said, there was, except for the state of play, there's really not much happening. Like it's December, everything's kind of died down. All the big games have been released.
Yeah,
just kind of this calm before the storm. With next year's gonna start pretty hot. And then it's going to start getting crazy real quick.
Yeah, next week's going to be very interesting because we can talk about the Game Awards that just happened.
Correct.
Which that's going to be a huge, thick topic. But yeah, there's no other big game releases to talk about that are coming up until February?
I mean, I'll probably talk about, January. They're going to have the Crystal Chronicles.
Oh, yeah.
And then, February with, I don't know what's in February, but, you have Animal Crossing, Final Fantasy. Everything's going to start coming in real hot, real quick.
Didn't Doom get pushed back to February?
I'm not sure if it was February or March or April, but yeah, definitely in that kind of time
Maybe
period.
Nothing's coming out in February. Maybe I'm just making shit up.
I don't know. There's going to be, I'm sure there'll be plenty. I haven't looked, but... Plus, as February, I think it was 2013 in February is when we got the big PlayStation 4 reveal with Mark Cerny coming up on the stage and showing us all the specs and the price point and all that stuff. So
stage, I remember there was a Wired article. Oh, you mean for the PS4?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's that we can start talking about when we think it's going to happen. It's probably going to be sometime between February and April where we're going to hear about both of those cons in a big way, in here's our 1 hour presentation way, and not a secret article from Wired.
Yeah, and we talked about this last Wednesday, all right, I'm gonna lay out everything on the table. So here there was a snafu where on Thanksgiving week nobody got an episode of the podcast, but you guys did record an episode. That episode released last Wednesday, and then the one we recorded last Wednesday, I put out yesterday. So they're getting 2 episodes in a row.
Staggered.
So technically last week, but but for the listeners, it happened yesterday. We talked about the Xbox Scarlet and how barely anybody's gotten the development kits. And I just realized because I was going back through things we had talked about previously, and I forgot there was that Xbox London convention. And so we had E3. They didn't release anything on Scarlet really at all. They had this London Xbox convention, no information about the Scarlet at all. So that's just adding. I didn't even think about that. That's adding into that whole narrative that I don't know if they're just really keeping it close to the vest or if they're really behind on. I mean, there's still a year before it supposedly launches, but
there's been rumors that they're trying to really wow PlayStation and catch them off guard. And Xbox kind of has the advantage where because they really don't have anything of note launching next year, that they can kind of do it whenever they want and they're not going to eat into any of their game cycle. But Sony has to worry about eating into Ghost of Tsushima, Last of Us 2. So it's if they do this announcement in February, they could potentially be overshadowing those huge tentpole releases that people have been waiting for years for months to come. So do they try to launch those games as early as they can and then do a summer reveal? But then they're kind of getting close to E3. It seems like they're in a tough spot for positioning and timing, and they also got to worry about when Scarlet's going to launch. Do they want to get it in before or after? So it's just kind of interesting.
Yeah, Xbox. The only thing that they announced at E3 that was of note was the next Halo game, but they didn't announce a release date because everyone assumed it was launching with the next system.
Yeah.
So there's nothing really for them to eat into at all.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. This is something that I really don't have any great guesses for. I really can't tell. I mean, I don't expect to hear anything before February, but it could be I would expect anytime between February and April, maybe. Then we'll hear about both of them, but who knows? Maybe not.
The Nintendo Switch, we got something we finally got a video in September, and then there was that big reveal the following January, and then it launched at March. So that was October, November. That was like 7 months difference between the two. So, I mean, theoretically, Xbox could wait until E3, just lay it all out. But, I mean, I don't know what's better, building the hype over a long period of time or waiting and just being like, bam!
And they got to worry about, I mean, once we're talking about going into next year, they're going to have to start manufacturing these consoles pretty soon after that point. So they're going to have to worry about leaks from these companies that they're kind of contracting to make all of these parts. Like, they're going to have to make so many millions of parts for these things that there's going to be so many people involved that they kind of want to also get out. That's kind of why they've been doing these Wired articles and stuff, because the dev kits have been getting into people's hands, and they don't want to have these things leak, without their control. So at least this way, with these articles and little announcements here and there about the hard drive and all that, some of the power and the controller and stuff like that, they can kind of have a little bit of control of how it's getting out there. But at some point, they can't control it anymore, so they got to do it before that point.
Yeah, and like, I know they want to quote unquote take Sony by surprise, but I mean, they took Sony by surprise 2 gens ago because the 360 was released earlier than the PS3.
True.
Taking them by surprise isn't waiting until the last minute or randomly doing something like that, because if the PS5 is getting, from what you said, based on what happened with the PS4, if you're assuming that we might get a lot of information about the PS5, like a huge launch thing in like February or January, that's the beginning of the PS5 launch train, hype train. That's the beginning of people pre-ordering the system, putting money down on that system. So by the time that's Xbox losing market share that they desperately need. They should have gotten out ahead of this. I
mean, they still have time technically.
They do. I want them to be more even split. I want this to be a very competitive console launch, because this past generation, it was there's not one person that could argue that it wasn't lopsided.
Yeah.
So it is going to be interesting what happens with it.
Yeah. I got no idea. And I mean, we're talking about all these consoles for next year, but this is going to be one of the craziest games for games before we're even talking about consoles. With Cyberpunk and Final Fantasy and
are going to be huge.
Doom, Avengers. Like, there's a lot of...
Oh, Avengers. I forgot about that.
Yeah, Ghost of Tsushima. There's a lot of big... Last of Us Part 2. Like, there's a lot of big bangers coming out in this last year for the current system.
Weird.
So we're far from done with this cycle, too.
Which we're not used to, because if you think about what happened at the end of last generation, that's when they were pushing... Nintendo was just launching the Wii U, and it was a train wreck out of the gate. Xbox was pushing the Kinect and only the Kinect. PlayStation was trying to push the Move. Neither system really had any huge games coming out at the end of like this. This is a lot different than what we dealt with last generation, so it is very interesting how things are coming ahead.
Yeah.
Right at the last year with these big games, these big multi-platform games. Nonetheless, it's not even. Like neither. Wait, FF7, is that a timed exclusive for PlayStation?
Yeah, they did say with the original announcement that like you can play it first on PlayStation. So they haven't really announced when or if it's going to come from somewhere else, but I think the kind of presumption is it is. And I wonder if they could announce the PS5 or whatever in February, March, and then for those games that are coming out, those big tentpole games, they could be like Last of Us 2 on PS4 and PS5, so kind of get people to not lose excitement about these big games, because they're going to be able to play them on PS5, and who knows if there's going to be
Would that also make people not buy it now, though?
That's a good point.
Because with what they did with, like, for instance, Last of Us, the first one, what they did was they just released it, and then once the PS4 was out, they're like, hey, now you can get it on the PS4, and it's a little upgraded. So they might want to wait until after the launch, just so they don't really... Because they might be able to double dip on those sales. I know there was a couple games that I bought on both the current gen and the last one. But that's it for me. Is there anything else you want to bring to the table, Matt?
That's it. Nothing left on the table.
Nice compact show.
Efficient.
Well,
no friggin' 20-minute discussions about DRM and online only.
A lot of people say sometimes there's too many cooks in the kitchen. When there's just 2 of us, there's not enough cooks in this kitchen. We need the sous chef over here giving his part. We're 3 parts of a triangle. When it's 2 points, it's just a line. How boring is that? Also, it's 1/3 less show for us to present to people. But
True.
They got a banger. The episode I put up yesterday was 2 hours, so they got a banger yesterday. This was about an hour and a half, I would say, maybe a little less.
It's fine.
But yeah. So Matt, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Matt Talks Games.
Can they?
I mean, I log in occasionally. I don't tweet. Tweeting is exhausting. I don't know how people do this. I mean, I guess they do it for a living.
I haven't tweeted in a while either.
It's just like,
Dan is our social media guy. He's handling his own Twitter as well as the Manabar Podcast Twitter. I do the Instagram just because it's linked directly to my personal Facebook account.
There are a lot of people that tweet like a dozen or more times a day, and that just sounds like I can't.
I mean, it's our president's platform.
But it's like
how weird is that though? If you think about it, though.
Yeah, I guess I feel like that's a little different because he's at least like.
No, not just weird in general. That's like something a person does 12 times a day.
It's just I don't know. I couldn't think of. Maybe I guess it's because I have a job that isn't dependent on video games, so I can't really think about video games 24/7. So I can't make 10 different points about video games during the day because I'm not surrounded by them.
It's hard.
Yeah,
it is hard to do. I mean, like I said, like you can find me at Highly and Andy on Twitter. I also don't tweet out a lot, but I want to make a more concerted effort to. However, I do use that gram. I am busy using the Instagram. I am busy posting the videos on YouTube. I'm always trying to make the podcast a little better from a production standpoint, so you can thank me for that. You can also find the podcast at Manabar Podcast on Twitter or the Manabar Podcast on Instagram, and you can email us at manabarpodcast@gmail.com.
Yep.
And though he is sorely missed today, you can also find Dan at Game Review Guy on Twitter. And with that, this is just the Trophy Hunter and the Bargain Bin Gamer logging off.
Bye, everyone.
So long. What was that? There's a little edge at the end there.
Okay. I thought you were like trying to do the voice of someone.
No,
like
just
an
a little
impression of
I don't know what
Link
I was
or
doing.
something.
Bye, everybody. Just a little singer in there at the end. I keep putting these little things we do after the podcast. I keep putting them on the podcast.
Oh,
I don't know if you listen. Like last week,
I listen to them, but not all the time.
Yeah, last week at the end of the podcast, you apologized to everybody, and then we had a conversation on why you apologized. I just left it in there because I thought